This is a map of Indonesia. It has more than 13,466 islands with about 9,000 named. The main 5 islands are Sumatra, Java, Borneo, Sulawesi, and New Guinea. However, if you are interested in supervolcanoes, there is one particular place in Indonesia that you would be attracted to, Lake Toba. Many people marvel at the sight of the lake but may not be aware that beneath it lies the largest volcano of all time, which just cracked open the earth. How mighty is this volcano, and can the eruption affect you where you live? Find out as we take a trip to Indonesia to observe the largest volcano of all time that just cracked open the earth. Indonesia is a popular tourist destination. The country is situated in maritime Southeast Asia, between the Indian Ocean to the south and west, the Timor Sea and the Arafura Sea to the south, the Bay of Bengal to the northwest, and the South China Sea or the Pacific Ocean, and some other marginal seas to the north. Indonesia shares land borders with Malaysia on the island of Borneo, Papua New Guinea, and Timor-Leste or East Timor on the island of Timor. Australia, India, Palau, the Philippines, Singapore, Thailand, and Vietnam all have maritime borders with the country. The country is made up of 5 major islands and approximately 30 smaller groups. There are 17,508 islands in total, with approximately 6,000 of them inhabited. Indonesia is the world's largest island country, covering an area of 1,904,569 square kilometers. The archipelago's total area is slightly smaller than Mexico, but more than 5 times larger than Germany's. The multi-ethnic country has a population of more than 271 million people. It is by far the most populous island nation in the world. Most of the larger islands are mountainous, with peaks ranging between 3,000 and 3,800 meters. Indonesia is located in the Ring of Fire, making it one of the most volcanically active and earthquake-prone areas on the planet. The islands of Indonesia were formed primarily by volcanic activity and ocean mountain-building activity caused by tectonic plate movement in Asia, the Indian Ocean, and the Pacific Ocean. In the Indonesian region, 2 massive plates, the Indian Ocean and Western Pacific plates, slide beneath an even larger plate, the Eurasian plate, and the Eurasian and Australian continental plates collide. Indonesia's islands are prone to earthquakes and even tsunamis. The island nation comes in 3rd place among countries, with the most volcanoes, trailing only the United States and Russia. Tectonically, this region, particularly Java, is highly unstable, making agricultural conditions in some areas unpredictable. The country has many mountains and 400 volcanoes, about 100 of which are active. Geological plates from Australia, Asia, and the Pacific pushed up to form Indonesia. A deep trench runs along the Indonesian chain's southern coast. The collision of the Eurasian and Australian continental plates creates a subduction zone, which causes numerous earthquakes and a chain of volcanoes that runs from Sumatra to Java and New Guinea, with a few side branches to Sulawesi and the Moluccas. 2 plates collide head-on at subduction zones, with one plate going over the top and forcing the other plate down. In some cases, the motion causes a descending convection current to flow down the ocean floor. Deep-sea trenches form here, as do mountain building and earthquakes, and millions of tons of rock sink into the crust every day. Scientists believe that the island of New Guinea, which includes Papua, was once part of the Australian continent. The tectonic action and breakup created both towering snow-capped mountain peaks lining its central east-west spine and hot, humid alluvial plains along New Guinea's coast. The mountains of Papua stretch for 650 kilometers east to west, dividing the province into north and south. The Indonesian region is one of the most seismically active zones on the planet, and it also has a leading position in terms of active and potentially active volcanoes. It has typical island arc physiographic features such as a deep oceanic trench, a gianticline belt, an inner volcanic arc, and a marginal basin. The motion of the subducted plate is nearly perpendicular to the trench axis in most subduction zones. A strike-slip fault zone is visible in some cases, such as Sumatra, where the motion is oblique to the axis and runs parallel to the volcanic chain. Volcanoes in the Banda Sea are the result of the Pacific Plate subducting beneath the Eurasia Plate. 1/4 of Indonesia's volcanoes are located north of the Sunda Arc in a region of complex tectonics. Several small plates have formed subduction zones that mostly run north to south. These subduction zones are responsible for the volcanoes of Sulawesi, Halmahera, and Sangihe. Many of Indonesia's islands are rugged relics of long-dead volcanoes. There are approximately 400 volcanoes in Indonesia. A string of volcanoes runs from Sumatra to Flores, with additional volcanoes in Sulawesi and the Moluccas. 1/3 of the world's active volcanoes are among these 127. Indonesia is one of the world's most geologically active regions. On average, 3 earthquakes measuring 5 or higher on the Richter scale occur each day, and volcanic eruptions kill roughly 10 times more people in Indonesia than in any other country. However, volcanoes have their positive sides. Volcanic lava and ash create rich soil that can produce multiple harvests without fertilizer year after year. Also, rain can fall from high volcanic peaks. In fact, volcanoes are not just a fact of life in Indonesia, but they are life itself, according to experts. Volcanic ash enriches the soil, allowing Java farmers to harvest 3 crops of rice in a single season. Farmers in neighboring Borneo, which has only 1 volcano, are unable to do so. There are 76 historically active volcanoes in the country, which is more than in any other country. Indonesia had 1,171 eruptions in 2006, narrowly trailing Japan's 1,274. Notable active volcanoes include the 2,968-meter-high Mount Merapi in the Jawa Tengah province, which last erupted in 2007, and Soputan in the Sulawesi Utara province, which last erupted in 2008. Between 1972 and 1991, 29 volcanic eruptions were recorded, the majority of which occurred on Java. Between 2000 and 2009, 110 new or continuous volcanic eruptions were recorded in Indonesia, most of which again occurred in Java. In Indonesia, volcanoes are referred to as gunung or fire mountains. The Volcanological Survey of Indonesia is the main organization in Indonesia that monitors volcanoes. It was founded by the Dutch in the 1920s and expanded by the Indonesian government. It has observation posts on some of the most dangerous volcanoes in Indonesia. Scientists constantly monitor Merapi, Sinabung, and other Indonesian volcanoes, but predicting their activity with any degree of accuracy is nearly impossible. There is no other place in the world where so many people live so close to so many active volcanoes. On Java alone, 120 million people live in the shadow of more than 30 volcanoes, a proximity that has killed over 140,000 people over the last 500 years. Volcanoes kill in a variety of ways, including searing lava, suffocating mud, and tsunamis that frequently follow an eruption. These volcanoes are tied to the everyday life of the people. For example, Sumatra, a vast island northwest of Java, is home to the Batak people who were converted to Christianity in the 19th century by European missionaries. However, many people here believe the first human descended from heaven on a bamboo pole to Mount Pusuk Buhit, an active volcano on Lake Toba's shores. Tengah Hindus who live around Mount Bromo in East Java climb through choking sulfurous clouds on a regular basis to throw money, vegetables, chickens, and the occasional goat into the crater. On Flores, the Nage, who are Catholics like most of the island, are buried with their backs to Mount Ebu Lobo, whose cone dominates the southern horizon. And volcanoes are sacred on the largely Hindu Bali, none more so than Mount Agung, the island's highest peak at 10,000 feet. It is said that even when blindfolded, a true Balinese knows where it is, and many sleep with their heads pointing toward it. 1,000 people were killed when Mount Agung erupted in 1963. Others died of starvation after ash suffocated their crops. The locals considered it as an act of divine origin, and what was once referred to as divine wrath is now regarded as a gift. The ash and sand thrown up by the eruption were used to construct hotels, restaurants, and villas for foreign tourists. Mount Agung is the highest mountain on the island and a 3,142-meter-high active volcano. Balinese refer to it as the navel of the world. It erupted violently in 1963, killing approximately 500 people. Offerings of rice, hard-boiled eggs, and flower blossoms are left on the volcano on a regular basis to keep it quiet. The oval crater measures about 500 meters in diameter. Interestingly, the 3,142-meter-high figure is from before the eruption, when the volcano's top was blown off. It is now estimated to be 3,014 meters tall. There are several hiking routes to the summit, the shortest of which takes about 3 hours. The two most popular climbing routes are from the Purabasaki Temple and Purapasat Agung Temple. There are treks that start at 2 a.m. and finish in time for sunrise. But before beginning the climb, you may have to make an offering, and the mountain should be treated with respect. That means no cursing or eating anything containing beef. Bali's Gunung Agung erupted for the first time in 120 years on March 16, 1963, with a follow-up eruption in May, destroying much of northeastern Bali and killing 1,100 people and displacing 100,000 others. Layers of ash and flows of hot mud that made it all the way to the sea destroyed entire villages. Hard rains following the eruption exacerbated the situation, causing landslides and lahars. Roads were closed, villages were destroyed, and more people were displaced, this time due to a lack of food. It is regarded as the center of their universe by the Balinese. A gate built to honor President Sukarno was destroyed during the eruption. This was interpreted as a symbol of corruption in the government, which was quickly deposed. Many Balinese believe Sukarno triggered the eruption by forcing Bali's religious leaders to stage an important ritual at a tourism conference. A pyroclastic flow, or an incandescent cloud of volcanic debris, raced down the mountain, killing 200 people in the town of Subagan. Almost everyone in the village of Labi was burned to death or suffocated by hot gas clouds. Other towns were destroyed by boiling mud and ash, and children died while making strange wailing sounds. Weeks after the eruption, some areas strewn with dog-eaten bodies were still too hot to enter. Days turned to night as far away as Java as cinder and ash clouds blew over, and drinking water became scarce as rivers and streams turned silty gray. Bali's most sacred shrine, Besaki, is located directly beneath the volcano. Despite the dangers of new eruptions and the governor of Bali's prohibition on visiting the temple, thousands of people went anyway to celebrate an April full moon ceremony. Plated palm fronds, bowls of rice, fried cakes, barbecued fowl, squat bananas, and spiny durians were among the gods' offerings. Some ceremonies culminate with women picking up hot coals with their bare hands. Another notable volcano in Indonesia is Mount Tambora. The volcano can be seen from the northern shore of the island of Sumbawa, which is located near the eastern end of the former Dutch East Indies, now known as Indonesia. Mount Tambora erupts on occasion. Its 1815 explosion was one of the most powerful ever recorded. Tambora was more than 14,000 feet tall in 1815, but when it blew up, it threw more than 4,000 feet off the top, leaving a crater more than 4 miles across and 2,000 feet deep. On April 5, 1815, a minor eruption, as if the volcano was practicing, was followed by thunderous rumbling noises. Ash began to fall, and on April 10th, there were more cannon-like rumblings. The eruption erupted in full force that evening with an explosion heard more than 1,200 miles away in Sumatra. Massive boulders were tossed around like pebbles, wreaking havoc in all directions. Columns of flame erupted from the mountain, combining to carry a plume of gas, dust, and smoke miles into the sky. Rivers of incandescent ash poured down the slopes at speeds of more than 100 miles per hour, destroying everything in their path before hissing and boiling into the sea. Ships in port were trapped in pumice stone rafts while tsunamis swept across the Java Sea. Volcanic ash reached as far away as Borneo. For weeks, ash and debris rained down and houses for miles around collapsed. Fresh water sources were contaminated, crops were destroyed, and sulfurous gas caused lung infections. It is estimated that 10,000 people were killed instantly. However, thousands more died of starvation and disease, bringing the death toll in Sumbawa and neighboring islands to anywhere between 60,000 to 90,000. Stamford Raffles, the then governor of Java, which the British had taken over during the Napoleonic Wars, dispatched an officer to Sumbawa to report on what had occurred. He he discovered that there were still dead bodies lying around, that the villages were almost entirely deserted, and that the majority of the houses had collapsed. The few survivors were desperately seeking food, and an epidemic of violent diarrhea had erupted, thought to be caused by volcanic ash contaminating the drinking water, and many people died as a result. Tambora is classified as ultra-Plinian, the most violent category of volcanic eruption. The name comes from younger Pliny's description of Vesuvius's destruction of Pompeii in AD 79. Sulfurous gases are ejected into the stratosphere by such eruptions, where they combine with water vapor to form aerosol clouds of sulfuric acid drops. Amazingly, the effect of the Tambora eruption was felt worldwide thanks to strange phenomena reported by observers independently. For example, in the northeastern United States in the spring and summer of 1815, fog dimmed and reddened the sunlight, which wind and rain could not dispel. It was referred to as an aerosol veil. Also at the turn of June and July, London experienced spectacular sunsets, which are thought to have influenced paintings by Turner. As global temperatures dropped, the following year brought even more damaging effects, with serious consequences for the climate and land fertility across much of the world. Mary and Percy Shelley, Lord Byron, and two other friends were staying at the Villa Deodat in Switzerland in mid-June 1816 when the weather turned rainy and foggy, trapping them inside. Byron suggested that they pass the time by each writing a horror story, which is when Mary Shelley started writing Frankenstein. Up in New York, snow fell in June and frost was reported in Connecticut. Deep snow fell in the Quebec region of Canada. Cold weather persisted throughout the summer in North America and elsewhere, causing a large number of crops to fail. The monsoon seasons in India and China were disrupted, resulting in agricultural damage, famine, and cholera. 1816 was dubbed the year without summer. And another volcanic eruption etched in the history of Indonesia is the Krakatoa. Krakatoa is a volcanic island in the Sunda Strait between the Indonesian islands of Java and Sumatra. The region was part of the Dutch East Indies at the time of its famous eruption in 1883. It is now part of Indonesia. Krakatoa and two nearby islands, Lang and Vallatan, as well as the undersea caldera volcanic crater between them, are thought to have been formed by a previous major eruption, most likely in the 5th or 6th century AD. By 1883, Krakatoa had three peaks: Perbawatan at the northernmost and most active, Danan in the center, and Rakata at the southern end of the island. Krakatoa was thought to have erupted 2 centuries earlier in 1680, and most people thought it was extinct. However, people reported tremors and explosions in May 1883, first in western Java and then on the other side of the Sunda Strait in Sumatra. A volcanic blast sent a cloud of gas and debris 15 miles into the air above Perbawatan around 1 p.m. on August 26th. It was the first of 21 hours of increasingly powerful explosions, culminating in a massive blast around 10 a.m. on August 27th that propelled ash 50 miles into the air and could be heard as far away as Perth, Australia, a distance of 2,800 miles. Approximately 9 square miles of the island, including both Perbawatan and Danan, sank underwater into the caldera to a depth of approximately 820 feet below sea level. More than 36,000 people were killed in Krakatoa's violent eruption. However, the tephra, or volcanic rock, and hot volcanic gases produced by the blasts killed relatively few of the victims. Tens of thousands more died in the tsunamis caused by the volcano's collapse into the caldera, including a 120-foot-high wall of water that formed immediately after the climactic blast and wiped out 165 coastal villages in Java and Sumatra. The Volcanic Explosivity Index, VEI, for the Krakatoa eruption in 1883 was 6, with a force of 200 megatons of TNT. In comparison, the bomb that destroyed Hiroshima, Japan in 1945 had a force of 20 kilotons, or nearly 10,000 times less power. The Krakatoa eruption emitted 6 cubic miles of rock, ash, dust, and debris into the atmosphere, darkening the skies and causing vividly colored sunsets and other spectacular effects all over the world. And other changes in climate occurred thousands of miles away from Indonesia. The amount of rainfall in Los Angeles in the months following the Krakatoa eruption, 38.18 inches, remains the city's highest annual rainfall on record. A more recent eruption, however, is that of Mount Merapi in 2010. Mount Merapi is a volcano on the Indonesian island of Java. Mount Merapi, also known as the Mountain of Fire, is part of the Ring of Fire. The most active volcano in its region, it has erupted 68 times since the 16th century. There have been 10 eruptions that have killed people since 1920. Typically, smoke can be seen rising from the volcano's summit 300 days out of the year. Mount Merapi is a 9,551-foot-tall active composite volcano with andesitic lava. It has a cone-shaped base and steep sides made of alternate layers of lava and ash from previous eruptions. When eruptions occur, they are usually violent with the lava and ash. Until about 10,000 years ago, eruptions were effusive with basaltic lava. However, the eruptions become much more explosive and frequently produce lava domes. These domes collapsing has frequently resulted in pyroclastic flows and longer explosions. Mount Merapi erupted 3 times between October 25th and 26th, 2010, leading to the evacuation of thousands from a 20-kilometer radius around the volcano's slopes. The column of smoke rose to 1.5 kilometers, and when pyroclastic activity ceased, 18 people were discovered dead. Their deaths were caused by burns and respiratory issues. The evacuation zone remained in place between the 17th to the 29th of October 2010, but lava ejections with hot ash clouds fell down the slope and traveled 3 kilometers, and pressure appeared to be decreasing behind the lava dome that had formed in the crater. The death toll, however, rose to 30. Mount Merapi erupted again on October 30th, causing a fireball to rise 2 kilometers into the air from the volcano. Magma continued to pour into the lava dome and ash fell more than 30 kilometers away. Sand began to fall 10 kilometers away as a result of this. These eruptions, however, pale in comparison to the Toba volcano, but more shockingly it is a ticking time bomb. The Toba supervolcano, which is still active, lies beneath the tranquil waters of Lake Toba on the Indonesian island of Sumatra. It occupied a 100-kilometer-long caldera and was the site of the Earth's most recent super eruption 75,000 years ago. Toba has erupted only twice in the last million years, and the time before last was 840,000 years ago. The more recent eruption may have cooled the Earth and influenced the evolution of our forefathers, and each eruption ejected approximately 2,800 cubic kilometers of magma, enough to cover the entire United States in ash. Super eruptions are classified as level 8 on the Volcanic Explosivity Index. They are propelled by massive magma reservoirs in the upper continental crust. The magma contains a lot of silica, which makes it viscous and explosive, unlike those of, say, Hawaii, which are low in silica and less explosive. The Toba eruption has a volume of approximately 2,800 cubic kilometers. In comparison, the Huckleberry Ridge, which erupted 2.2 million years ago at Yellowstone, has a volume of 2,500 cubic kilometers. The Lava Creek, which erupted 600,000 years ago in Yellowstone, has a volume of 1,000 cubic kilometers. Mount St. Helens, that erupted in May 1980, spewed 1 cubic kilometers of ash. The pyroclastic flows covered at least 20,000 square kilometers. The caldera walls expose up to 1,200 feet of Mount Toba, and the mountain on Samosir Island is over 800 meters thick. Deep-sea cores taken in the Bay of Bengal and India, roughly 300 miles or 500 kilometers inland, have produced ash from the eruption about 1,900 miles or 3,100 kilometers from Toba. According to studies, the ash could have reached Central Asia and the Middle East. An international team excavated 2 sites on South Africa's south coast, discovering human activity both before and after the eruption. At both locations, the scientists discovered tiny shards of volcanic glass in the sediment. These are part of the tephra, or debris ejected from a volcano during an eruption. When the shards were chemically analyzed, they were discovered to be a match for Mount Toba, which is approximately 9,000 kilometers away. These are thought to be the first volcanic deposits of their kind discovered so far away from their source. demonstrating the power of the Toba eruption. Scientists estimated the height of the eruption column for the Toba volcano to be 30 to 50 miles or 50 to 80 kilometers. The eruption occurred at a critical point in human evolution when Homo sapiens was poised to spread beyond Africa. Some scientists have even claimed that the sulfur released by Toba caused a volcanic winter that resulted in a human population bottleneck with only 10,000 people surviving. But what makes the Lake Toba volcano frightening is that it's a ticking time bomb. It is not entirely clear why supereruptions like Mount Toba occur. For example, they could be triggered by a sudden increase in the rate of magma flux into the reservoir. But geologists don't know for certain, which is why a team from Switzerland's University of Geneva and China's Peking University traveled to Toba. The researchers wanted to know what signals indicate an impending supereruption, and their findings were published in the Proceedings of the National Academy of Sciences. Zircon is frequently found in explosive eruptions, and the mineral contains uranium and lead levels that allow for accurate dating. The authors were able to estimate the rate of magma accumulation beneath Toba's caldera prior to the volcano's previous two eruptions by combining these measurements with thermal and geochemical modeling. The findings indicate that the rate of magma influx has been relatively constant over the last 2.2 million years, implying that Toba's supereruptions were not caused by a sudden increase in magma. Instead, it was the rising temperature of the magma reservoir over time, known as thermal maturation, that triggered the explosion. This finding is unsettling because it implies that geological signals on Earth's surface, such as cracked rocks or gas seepage, do not have to occur prior to an eruption. As a result, supervolcanoes can be unpredictable, ticking time bombs. Let's hear what you think of supervolcanoes in the comments section below.